All right, so why on earth is multimillionaire Sir Keir Starmer letting a billionaire Labour donor buy his wife a new wardrobe and throw in a personal shopper whilst he's at it? Why? Well, don't worry, because according to our esteemed Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, there is nothing to see here. It's just a Labour supporter making sure the Prime Minister looks presentable.
In our country, there isn't a budget for the Prime Minister's clothes or his wife's clothes. I've just come back from America, where there is a substantial budget to ensure that the US President and the First Lady, their appearance can never be challenged. That is not the case in our country.
Oh, my gosh, honestly, come on. Just to take a second to imagine now how Labour and their supporters would react if Boris Johnson didn't declare a donation that paid for Carrie's clothes, or maybe this is nothing to see here. Politicians' freebies, you know, they get them quite regularly, don't they? We all know that. The Prime Minister is insistent that he's done nothing wrong. He hasn't ruled out taking donations from Lord Ali in the future. I'm not surprised. So, is this a storm in a teacup, or is Labour now becoming the party of sleaze? Let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/yoursay. @gbnews is our Twitter handle, so you can engage with us there. But to battle this out in the studio, our Tory MP, Andrew Rosindell, and political commentator, Andy Williams. Both of you, thank you very much. It makes a world of difference having you both in the studio, so thank you. Andrew, I'll start with you. Yeah, I mean, is this corruption and sleaze, do you think?
I want our Prime Minister, whoever it is, to look good. But if you're a multimillionaire, you can pay for your own clothes. When we have a government that is doing so much harm, particularly to the elderly people, cutting the winter fuel allowance and all the other things that are coming down the line which are going to affect them, the look of a Labour Prime Minister, actually getting cash to pay for his spectacles and his suits, and then we find out his wife has been doing the same, I think it's utterly shameful. And I think a lot of people who voted Labour on the 4th of July are going to be regretting doing so today. Interesting.
All right, then, Andy, I'll ask you the same question. You know,
Yep.
is this a bit sleazy?
No, I don't think it's sleazy. I don't think it's a good look. And as a Labour supporter and someone who thinks Labour can and actually will make some progress on cleaning up politics, and I mean that seriously, I think it's really unfortunate to see Starmer making some of these rookie errors. I would put it down to naivety and inexperience and a steep learning curve rather than anything sinister. Now, by the way, I think whoever's running comms in number 10 needs to get a handle on it, because allowing Victoria Starmer to go to London Fashion Week this morning is ludicrous. I say, as a professional comms person, what were they thinking? But having said all of that, the idea that Labour is the party of sleaze or corruption, when you look at what happened with the successive Conservative governments over many years, which I think reached its absolute apex under Boris Johnson, a man who did more to debase the office of Prime Minister than anyone pretty much in the history of that office, I think is a bit of a cheek. And that's not even to mention the SNP.
OK. Andrew, I mean, you know, this is the kind of thing that unfortunately for Keir Starmer, there's always a receipt. And the receipts are him standing at the dispatch box in Parliament, hammering Boris Johnson, not declaring things, really, really, really going at him. And now he's done it. Is he a hypocrite?
I'm afraid so, yes. I don't like saying that about our Prime Minister, but it is utterly hypocritical that all those years Labour would throw as much mud at the Conservatives as they could. And, OK, a lot of mistakes were made under the last government, but this was meant to be a government of service. Who are they serving? They're serving their own.
Prada.
They're looking after their own interests. This is not a government of service. It's been a government of shambles so far, and now we see it's a government of self-service. Well, I think the British people are growing tired of this government very quickly.
I don't agree at all that it's government of shambles. I think Labour have been very clear about what they're planning to do. I think they've made some really bold calls early on. I actually think, and hopefully this will raise a few more £1,000 for your thing, Patrick, but I actually think it's the right decision to make on the winter fuel allowance. I really, really do, because as Age UK themselves say, 80% of people who receive the winter fuel allowance don't need it. So I think we should be taking that money away from those people, because they literally don't need it. They'll be fine. There are obviously people at the margins and at the poor end of the scale who do need that money. But putting that to one side, just to come back to, you know, you say if this was Boris Johnson who done this, well, it was. It literally was. And actually,
they called him to resign.
Rightly so. And there is
then what happens now?
There is a subtle difference here, but important difference, which is that Keir Starmer, he declared this late. He declared this late, and that is a mistake, and he should rightly receive opprobrium for that.
Who paid for Boris Johnson
didn't. Boris Johnson didn't.
Boris's suits and spectacles.
But the point, it doesn't, Andrew. It doesn't matter whether it's clothes or wallpaper or anything.
I'm sorry, wallpaper is static. It's in Downing Street in a government building.
Yeah. Come
He
on.
can't take the wallpaper with him.
Doesn't make
the suits and the spectacles you can. Totally
doesn't
different.
make it. Doesn't make
no
a difference.
comparison.
No, of course. No,
Right.
I think the
I'm just going to bring it because we're going to carry on with this, but I just wanted to show us, remind ourselves of something that Keir Starmer was saying in Parliament when he was in those heady days as leader of the opposition. So this is him to Boris Johnson, I think.
The Prime Minister will be aware that he's required to declare any benefits that relate to his political activities, including loans or credit arrangements, within 28 days. 28 days, Prime Minister, yes. He will also know that any donation must be recorded in the register of the Minister's interests, and that under the law, any donation of over £500 to a political party must be registered and declared.
All right, so look, Keir Starmer, North London. All right, it's quite nice, quite leafy, isn't it? Has been surrounded, with quite well-paid jobs. His life, he doesn't seem necessarily able to define properly what working class is. Hammering people, certainly the elderly in Britain at the moment, with a basket of measures that is going to really harm them this winter. And then at the same time, he's got a personal shopper doing his wife's clothes shopping. Do you think he's massively out of touch with people?
Oh, my goodness, he is, completely. These people are supposed to be caring, sharing socialists. They're meant to be looking after the working class. They're meant to be the party of the people, but they're not. You come to Romford, you speak to you come to my constituency, the average man and woman in the street, they are incandescent with what this government is doing. They didn't vote for this government, they voted...
Well, no one voted for this because it wasn't in the manifesto.
Absolutely, and they are hypocritical. They spent 14 years hammering a Conservative government, which, by the way, left the country, the economics of the country was in a far stronger state.
Oh, really?
After the pandemic, yes.
No, it wasn't.
Absolutely. Fastest growing economy in the G7.
Living standards down, real wages down.
To all Western
I'll just ask you a similar question on this. I do wonder whether or not Keir Starmer is actually massively out of touch with the common man and woman. Does he live in the same world that we live?
It does annoy me, Patrick, when we go down this London route. I mean, the idea that everybody in Romford is really normal and straight down the line. Everyone in Holborn...
It's not London, you should know that.
I do know that. Thank you. My partner's from Essex. Everybody in Holborn and St Pancras is somehow like an elitist multimillionaire lawyer. Is a load of nonsense.
No, but he is, though, isn't he?
Well, I don't think he's an elitist. And I really don't. Keir Starmer's from a lower working class background, low middle class background, let's say. OK, let's not split hairs. He is. And he worked his way up and he worked bloody hard and he got a knighthood on merit and he became Director of Public Prosecutions on merit. So
can we
just say fair play to him on that?
Absolutely.
And to say that, I just don't think it's fair to say, he represents this sort of central North London constituency, so he's out of touch. But because Andrew represents Romford, he's really in touch. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense at all.
Can I say something else about Keir? I mean, all credit to him. He won this humongous Labour majority. But he also is the Prime Minister with the lowest national share of the vote of any Prime Minister ever.
But that's not how a system works. It's
the
like
British
saying...
people, he doesn't have a mandate in that.
He absolutely has a huge mandate.
On 34% of the vote.
That's like saying, well, you only won 1-0, but you had 28 corners.
34% of the vote.
Well, OK, all right, well, look, it remains to see how this plays out, but, it's going to be one to watch, isn't it? He says that he'll quite happily take more donations from Lord Ali going forward. I do find it odd, though, I must say, the idea that I don't know what Emily would make of it if I said, Lord Ali wants to go and buy you a new wardrobe. Anyway.